The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with quiet activity as it drifted through the darkness of space. Captain Minho Park sat in his command chair, reviewing supply reports with barely concealed boredom. 20 years in the Earth Defense Force had taught him that patrol duty was 99% waiting and 1% chaos. He preferred the waiting. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," announced Lieutenant Yoonji Kim from her tactical station. Her fingers danced across the holographic display, pulling up the transmission data. Minho sat up straighter. "Put it through." The speakers crackled with static before a desperate voice filled the bridge. The translation software worked overtime, converting alien speech into English. "This is the colony ship Bright Hope of the Velkari people. Our engines have failed. We are drifting toward the Epsilon radiation field. Please, anyone who receives this, we have 3,000 souls aboard, including children. We need immediate assistance," and the bridge fell silent. Every officer knew what the Epsilon field meant. Any ship caught in that radiation would be torn apart at the molecular level within hours. "Location?" Minho asked. "Sector 792, sir." "About 6 hours away at maximum speed," Yoonji replied. She hesitated before adding, "Captain, something feels wrong about this." "Explain." Yoonji pulled up a secondary screen. "The encryption on their distress signal is military grade. Very sophisticated. Why would a civilian colony ship have that kind of technology?" Minho studied the data. She had a point, but he also saw the life sign readings. 3,000 people were about to die if someone didn't help them. Maybe they bought it from a defense contractor. Rich colonists sometimes over-prepare. He opened a channel to the communications officer. "Get me Earth Command." 10 minutes later, Admiral Hana Song appeared on the main screen. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her expression was stern. "Captain Park, I've reviewed the distress call. What's your recommendation?" "We should respond, Admiral. If this is legitimate, 3,000 lives are at stake. The Velkari have been peaceful in all our previous encounters. This could be an opportunity to strengthen diplomatic relations." Admiral Song nodded slowly. "Agreed, but take precautions. I'm authorizing 2 additional ships to join you. The Mercy's Hand and the Forge Runner. If this is a genuine emergency, you'll need medical and engineering support anyway." "Understood, Admiral. We'll proceed with caution." The 3 ships met at the rendezvous point 2 hours later. Dr. Yuna Choi commanded the Mercy's Hand, a medical frigate equipped with the latest in xenobiological treatment facilities. She was famous for saving the crew of a Corel trading vessel last year, earning Earth a valuable ally in the process. Chief Engineer Taeyang Han led the Forge Runner, a boxy vessel packed with manufacturing equipment and repair drones. Taeyang had a reputation for being able to fix anything with enough time and coffee. As the small fleet traveled toward the distress signal, Minho assembled his senior staff in the briefing room. Yoonji was there, along with Hyunwoo Nam, the fleet's intelligence analyst, and Jiwoo Lee, their xenolinguist. "I want everyone's assessment," Minho said, pulling up a holographic display of the Velkari ship. "Hyunwoo, what do we know about the Velkari?" Hyunwoo adjusted his glasses and pulled up several files. "The Velkari are a relatively new contact. We first encountered them 3 years ago. They're described as traders and explorers. Their government is called the Velkari Consortium. They've been friendly but distant. No conflicts recorded. Cultural notes, Jiwoo." The young linguist leaned forward. "Their language has 17 different words for profit, but only 3 for friendship. Make of that what you will. Their society values efficiency and strategic thinking. They consider emotional decisions to be weakness." Yoonji spoke up. "I've been running simulations. Captain, there are 17 different weapon signatures hidden in the background noise of that distress signal. Faint, but they're there. Like someone turned off their weapons, but the residual energy hasn't dissipated yet." The room went cold. Minho felt his stomach tighten. Could it be leftover energy from defensive weapons? If they were attacked, they might have fought back before their engines failed. "Possible," Yoonji admitted. "But combined with the military encryption, I'm recommending we approach at yellow alert." "Agreed. But we're not turning back. If there are children on that ship, we have to at least try." Minho stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "Yellow alert. All ships maintain defensive formations. Shields up but weapons cold. Let's not start a war by accident." As they approached the coordinates, the Velkari ship finally appeared on their sensors. It was massive, easily twice the size of the Indomitable. The hull showed obvious damage, with several sections venting atmosphere. It tumbled slowly through space exactly as a disabled ship would. Life signs confirmed, Hyunwoo reported, reading approximately 3,000 individual signatures, mix of adults and juveniles based on the bio patterns. Dr. Yuna's voice came over the comms. Captain Park, my medical teams are ready. We can begin evacuation procedures as soon as you establish contact. Taeyang added, I'm seeing the engine damage now. Looks like a cascade failure in their primary reactor. Nasty but repairable. Give me 4 hours and I can get them limping to the nearest station. Minho opened a channel to the Velkari ship. This is Captain Minho Park of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. We've received your distress call and are here to render assistance. Please respond. For a long moment there was only static. Then a voice replied, smooth and controlled. Captain Park, this is Administrator Theron of the Bright Hope. Your arrival is most timely. We accept your generous offer of assistance. Something in Theron's tone made Minho's instincts scream. The administrator didn't sound frightened or relieved. He sounded satisfied. Yoonji scanned that ship again. Full spectrum. Already on it, sir. Captain, I'm picking up power fluctuations in their damaged sections. The pattern is wrong. It looks like... The Indomitable shuddered as docking clamps suddenly shot out from the Velkari ship, latching onto their hull with magnetic force. We're being grappled, shouted the helmsman. I can't break free. Then the universe exploded with light. All around them, previously invisible ships decloaked. Dozens of Velkari warships appeared from nowhere, surrounding the 3 Earth vessels in a perfect sphere formation. Each one bristled with weapons, all powered up and targeting the humans. Theron's face appeared on the main screen. The Velkari looked almost human except for the golden tint to his skin and the extra joint in his fingers. He was smiling. Captain Park, let me congratulate you on your compassion. It made this so much easier. You humans are exactly as predictable as our research suggested. Always rushing to help, always trusting, always weak. Minho felt ice in his veins, but his voice remained calm. This is an act of war, Theron. This is strategy, Captain. Your ships are now ours. Your technology will be studied. Your weapons will be replicated. And your species will learn that mercy is a fatal flaw in this galaxy. Theron's smile widened. You have 1 minute to order your fleet to surrender. After that, we will simply destroy you and salvage what remains. The bridge crew looked to Minho, waiting for orders. He saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were Earth's finest, trained for exactly this kind of situation. They just didn't know it yet. Minho smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You studied us, Theron, but you didn't study the right things. He touched a button on his command chair that most of the crew had never seen activated. All ships, this is Park. Authorization code Omega-33. Execute Protocol 13. Throughout the fleet, alarms began to wail. Every crew member knew what Protocol 13 meant. It was the code that turned rescue ships into warships, that transformed mercy into violence, that released every restraint Earth had placed on its military forces. It meant total war, and the Velkari had just learned that the most dangerous predator in any ecosystem is the one that chooses not to hunt until threatened. The Velkari warships maintained their perfect sphere formation around the 3 Earth vessels. On his command throne, Administrator Theron watched the human ships with satisfaction. Everything had gone according to plan. The humans were trapped, their vessels caught like insects in amber. Their shields are activating, reported one of his officers. Weapon systems coming online. Theron waved a dismissive hand. Let them. 3 ships against 40. The mathematics are clear. He opened the channel again to the Indomitable. Captain Park, your minute is up. Surrender now or watch your crews die. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Minho's calm voice replied, You made a mistake, Theron. A big one. Really? And what mistake is that? You studied our diplomats, our peacekeepers, our aid workers. Minho's eyes were cold now, all pretense of warmth gone. You never studied our soldiers. Before Theron could respond, the space between the ships erupted with electromagnetic pulses. The Velkari vessel's shields flickered and died across half their fleet. Theron stared in disbelief at his tactical display. What did you do? Lieutenant Eunji Kim had been busy during their approach to the disabled Velkari ship. Every scan the Indomitable had performed was actually a 2-way transmission. While the humans gathered data, they had also been planting something in the Velkari systems, a virus small and patient waiting for the right activation code. Their shield harmonics are fluctuating, Eunji reported with grim satisfaction. The virus is spreading through their fleet network. They should have better firewalls. The docking clamps that held the Indomitable suddenly glowed white-hot. Chief Taiyang had remotely overloaded their magnetic coils, turning them into improvised bombs. They exploded outward, shredding the hull of the disabled Velkari colony ship and freeing the human vessel. All ships, break formation and attack pattern Delta, Minho ordered. The 3 Earth ships scattered like leaves in a storm. The Indomitable rolled to port, its main cannons firing in a continuous stream. But these weren't ordinary railgun rounds. Each projectile contained a microfusion core that detonated on impact. 3 Velkari cruisers simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Dr. Yuna's medical frigate, the Mercy's Hand, was moving too. The exterior panels fell away, revealing hidden weapon systems. Missile pods disguised as medical supply containers opened with mechanical precision. Dozens of missiles streaked toward the Velkari fleet. "What are those?" demanded Theron, watching the projectiles approach. His shields were back up now and he wasn't worried. Missiles were primitive weapons, easily stopped by modern defense systems. Then the first missile hit a Velkari destroyer. It didn't explode. Instead, it released a gray cloud that spread across the ship's hull like a living thing. Within seconds, the destroyer's armor began to dissolve. Nanites, billions of microscopic machines, were eating the ship alive at the molecular level. "Pull back that ship," Theron screamed. "Don't let that cloud spread." But it was too late. The nanite swarm jumped to 3 more nearby vessels. Velkari crews abandoned ship in escape pods as their vessels were reduced to component atoms. Chief Taiyang's Forge Runner proved that engineering vessels could be just as deadly as warships. The boxy ship deployed what looked like repair drones, hundreds of them. But these drones weren't programmed to fix things. They were programmed to find Velkari shield generators and attach to them. When they detonated simultaneously, 20 Velkari ships lost their shields in an instant. The Indomitable and Mercy's Hand didn't waste the opportunity. The coordinated fire was devastating. Inside the Indomitable, Sergeant Deho Shin led his Marine team to the transporter bay. Boarding enemy vessels was risky, but risk was something humans understood better than most species. "All right, listen up," he told his team. "We're going straight to their flag bridge. Fast, hard, and scary. Make them regret ever hearing about Earth." The transportation technology was experimental, barely tested, but it worked. One moment Deho and his 20 Marines were on the Indomitable. The next they materialized on the bridge of Theron's command ship. The Velkari crew barely had time to register the threat before the humans opened fire. Deho's team moved like they had rehearsed this 1,000 times because they had. Every movement was efficient, precise, and lethal. Within 30 seconds, the bridge was secured. "This is Shin to Indomitable. Flag bridge captured. Sending you their command codes now." Minho received the data with satisfaction. "Good work, Sergeant. Hold that position." In the pilot bay of the Indomitable, Minji Kang climbed into her fighter. The young pilot had been itching for action since the moment the Velkari revealed their trap. Now she finally had her chance. "Fighter Squadron, this is Kang. Form up on me. Let's show these aliens how humans fly." 12 fighters launched from the Indomitable's bay, immediately scattering into impossible flight patterns. The Velkari point defense systems tried to track them but couldn't keep up. Human pilots trained in Earth's gravity wells where one mistake meant death. Space combat was almost relaxing by comparison. Minji rolled her fighter through the explosion of a Velkari missile, using the debris as cover before coming up behind an enemy cruiser. Her targeting computer locked onto their engine core. One missile perfectly placed and the cruiser went dark. "That's 3 for me," she announced on the squadron channel. "Who's keeping score?" "Focus on the mission, Kang," came Unji's voice from the Indomitable. But there was approval in her tone. Theron watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and couldn't understand it. The humans had been outnumbered 13 to 1. They should have been easy prey. But these humans fought like they had been preparing for this exact scenario their entire lives. He didn't know that human history was written in war. Thousands of years of conflict had taught humanity lessons that peaceful species never learned. Humans knew every dirty trick, every tactical advantage, every psychological warfare technique. They had turned warfare into both a science and an art form. "Pull back," Theron ordered. "Full retreat. Jump to hyperspace." But when his ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, nothing happened. Hyunwoo Nam, the intelligence analyst, had been busy. During their approach, the human ships had deployed microsatellites throughout the sector. Now those satellites activated, creating a gravitational interference pattern that made FTL travel impossible. The Velkari were trapped in a cage of their own making. Captain Park. Theron's voice had lost its confidence. We surrender. Please stop the attack. Minho's face appeared on every Velkari screen in the fleet. His expression was hard as steel. You'll surrender when I say you can surrender. You wanted to study humans? Let me teach you something. We have a saying on Earth. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. You started this. The human attack continued. Not to destroy, but to disable. The Indomitable's weapons targeted engines and weapon systems, leaving life support intact. The Mercy's hands nanites were programmed to stop after eating through armor, not to harm the crews inside. Even in total war, humans maintained some rules, but the Velkari were learning a hard lesson. Mercy and strength were not opposites. The humans were being merciful by letting them live at all. One by one, the Velkari ships went dark, floating dead in space. Out of 40 warships, only 5 remained operational, and those were running on emergency power. Theron's flagship was boarded by 3 separate Marine teams. He sat on his command throne, hands raised in surrender as Sergeant Deho approached. Administrator Theron, Deho said, his weapon never wavering. You're under arrest for acts of war against humanity and its allies. We yield, Theron whispered. We yield? Yeah, Deho replied. You do. Back on the Indomitable, Minho surveyed the battlefield. 35 Velkari warships were disabled and drifting. 5 were under human control. 3,000 Velkari colonists who were actually military personnel were now prisoners. And the humans had accomplished this with only minor damage to their own ships. Dr. Yuna contacted him, her voice shaken. Captain, I have casualty reports. We lost 12 people in the initial attack. 23 more injured. Minho closed his eyes. Every life lost was a weight on his soul. Understood, Doctor. Make sure their families are notified personally. They died saving thousands of others. Thousands? Yunji asked. Hyunwoo pulled up data he had extracted from the Velkari computers. This wasn't their first trap. The Velkari have been doing this for years. 6 other species were attacked the same way. The Velkari would capture their ships, steal their technology, and enslave or eliminate the crews. Captain, we just stopped a pattern that has killed tens of thousands. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed that information. They hadn't just won a battle. They had stopped monsters. Minho opened a channel to the fleet. All ships stand down from combat alert. Begin rescue operations for Velkari survivors. We're not them. We don't leave people to die in space, even our enemies. As human crews began pulling Velkari from disabled ships, Theron watched from his cell. He finally understood his mistake. Humans weren't weak because they valued mercy. They were terrifying precisely because they could be both merciful and deadly, often at the same time. He had pretended to need rescue. Earth had made it his funeral. 2 weeks after the battle, the human fleet had transformed the sector into a temporary base of operations. The disabled Velkari ships floated under guard while human engineers worked to keep them operational. Not as weapons, but as prison facilities. There were too many Velkari prisoners to fit on the human ships, so Minho had decided to use their own vessels as holding cells. Hyunwoo Nam worked around the clock in the intelligence center, processing the massive amount of data extracted from Velkari computers. What he found made his blood run cold. Captain, you need to see this, Hyunwoo said, pulling up holographic displays in the briefing room. Minho, Yunji, and Dr. Yuna gathered around him. The display showed a star map with 6 systems marked in red. These are the species the Velkari attacked before us. The Nethir, crystalline beings who communicate through light. The Coral, aquatic people who needed water-filled ships. The Vethrans, insectoid colonists. And 3 others. Did any survive? Dr. Yuna asked quietly. Some. The Velkari took their ships and technology, but many crews were sold into slavery rather than killed. The Velkari have a whole network of black market contacts. Hyunwoo pulled up more files. But here's the important part. This wasn't an isolated operation. The Velkari have 6 more ambush fleets positioned throughout the sector, targeting other compassionate species. Minho studied the map. We need to warn everyone, and we need to find these survivors. Already working on it, Hyunwoo said. I've cracked most of their encryption. Communication codes, fleet positions, even their government structure. The Velkari Consortium is essentially a military dictatorship disguised as a trading company. Yunji leaned forward. If we release this information, it will start a war. Every species they've attacked will want revenge. Not revenge, Minho corrected. Justice. There's a difference. The next morning, Minho authorized a message broadcast to every known spacefaring civilization. The message was simple and devastating. It contained all the evidence of Velkari crimes, unedited and complete. Video logs of attacks, testimony from survivors, financial records of slave trading. Everything. Within hours, the galactic community erupted in outrage. The Velkari had presented themselves as peaceful traders for decades. Now everyone saw the truth. But Minho wasn't done. He assembled a strike force to rescue the survivors of previous Velkari attacks. Sergeant Deho led the ground teams. Pilot Minji Kang commanded the fighter squadrons. Chief Taeyang prepared engineering teams to repair damaged alien vessels. The first rescue mission targeted a Velkari slave facility on a remote moon. Intelligence showed that Nether survivors were being held there, forced to work in crystal mines. The crystalline aliens were perfect for the job, their bodies naturally resistant to radiation and heat. The human strike force hit the facility at dawn. Deho's Marines moved through the corridors like shadows, their training paying off. The Velkari guards never had a chance. Within 30 minutes, the facility was secured. Deho found the Nether in massive underground chambers, their crystalline bodies dim and cracked from exhaustion. There were hundreds of them, including younglings. "Medical team, we need you down here now," he called over comms. Dr. Yuna's team arrived with specialized equipment. The Nether didn't have blood or organs like humans, but they had energy matrices that could be healed with the right care. Yuna had studied their physiology during the 2-week preparation period. One of the Nether, an elder named Koresh, approached Deho cautiously. When the alien spoke, it was through pulses of colored light. The translation device rendered it as, "Why do you help us? What do you want in return?" Deho removed his helmet so the alien could see his face. "Nothing. The Velkari attacked us too. We're shutting down their operations and freeing everyone they captured." Koresh's light pulsed in confusion. "You are warriors. Warriors take. They do not free." "Human warriors are different," Deho replied. "We fight so others don't have to." The Nether rescue was just the beginning. Over the next month, human strike teams hit 12 Velkari facilities. They freed the aquatic coral from underwater prison complexes. They liberated veteran workers from manufacturing plants. They even found survivors from 2 species that Earth had never encountered before. Each rescue operation was different, requiring careful planning and cultural sensitivity. Jiwoo Lee, the xenolinguist, worked overtime to establish communication with species that had no prior contact with humanity. Some were terrified of their rescuers at first. Others welcomed them as saviors. Meanwhile, Admiral Hana Song arrived from Earth with reinforcements. She brought 5 additional warships and a diplomatic corps. The Admiral met with Minho on the Indomitable to discuss the situation. "You've started something big here, Captain," the Admiral said, studying reports. 6 species are calling for the Velkari government to be dissolved. 3 others want to form a military alliance with Earth, and the Velkari are threatening war if we don't return their ships and personnel. "They can threaten all they want," Minho replied. "We have evidence of their crimes. We have survivors who can testify, and we have captured their ambush fleets before they could attack anyone else." The Admiral nodded slowly. "The Council is backing your actions, but they want justice done properly. We're organizing a tribunal on a neutral world. Every species the Velkari attacked will have representation. It will be the first multi-species trial in galactic history." While preparations for the trial continued, the Velkari government made one last desperate move. They sent a battle fleet to retake their captured ships and personnel. 23 warships, their newest and most powerful vessels, jumped into the sector ready for war. They found themselves facing not just the human fleet, but ships from the Nether, Coral, and Vethrans as well. The freed species had joined with Earth, bringing their own vessels and warriors. The Velkari fleet was outnumbered for the first time in their history. The Velkari commander, a military officer named Velak, broadcast a challenge. "Surrender our people and ships, or we will take them by force." Admiral Hana Song replied calmly, "Your people are prisoners awaiting trial for war crimes. Your ships are evidence in those trials. If you attack, you'll only be adding more charges." "We do not recognize your authority to judge us," Velak snarled. "Then let me be clear," the Admiral said. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and every species in this sector wants you gone. You have one chance to leave peacefully. Take it. For a long moment, the Valkyrie fleet held position. Weapons were armed. Shields were at maximum. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Valek's ship turned and jumped to hyperspace. The rest of his fleet followed. The Valkyrie military had backed down without firing a shot. They'll be back, Yunji warned. Probably, Minho agreed. But next time we'll be ready, and we won't be alone. The trial took place on a neutral space station 6 weeks later. Representatives from 9 species sat in judgment. The evidence presented was overwhelming. Video logs showed Valkyrie ambushes in progress. Financial records proved systematic slave trading. Survivor testimony described years of abuse and exploitation. Theron sat in the defendant's area, looking smaller somehow than he had during the ambush. His golden skin had dulled to a sickly yellow. When asked to defend his actions, he simply said, "We did what was necessary to ensure Valkyrie prosperity." A Nethir judge named Koresh, the same elder that Daiho had freed, responded, "You stole our prosperity. You killed our people. You enslaved our children. There is no defense for this." The trial lasted 2 weeks. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. The Valkyrie Consortium was declared a criminal organization. All its assets were to be seized and distributed as reparations to victim species. Theron and his senior officers received life sentences. The Valkyrie people were not punished as a whole, but their government was dismantled. A young Valkyrie officer named Seleth attended the trial as an observer. She was only 20 years old, born after the first ambush attacks. When the verdict was announced, she approached the human delegation. "I am ashamed of what my people did," she said quietly. "Many young Valkyrie feel the same way. We did not know. Our leaders told us we were defending ourselves against aggressive species." Ambassador Somin Kwan, Earth's representative at the trial, studied the young alien carefully. "What will you do now?" "Help if you will allow it. There are thousands of Valkyrie who had no part in these crimes. We want to make things right. We want to prove that not all Valkyrie are like Theron." Somin considered this. "That won't be easy. Your people have made many enemies, I know, but we have to try. Redemption is not given, it must be earned." The ambassador smiled. "Then let's talk about how you can help." Back on the Indomitable, Minho watched the trial verdict broadcast with his crew. When it was over, Yunji turned to him. "We won, sir. Why don't you look happy?" "Because this is just one fleet, one region of space. The galaxy is huge. How many other species are out there preying on the compassionate? How many more Valkyrie are there wearing different faces?" Dr. Eunice spoke up from the medical station. "Then we teach the galaxy what we taught the Valkyrie, that mercy and strength can coexist, that predators can become protectors, and that humans don't start fights," added Sergeant Daiho, who was present for the broadcast. "But we sure as hell finish them." 6 months had passed since the trial. The sector had changed dramatically, but the work was far from over. Captain Minho Park stood on the observation deck of a new space station, watching construction crews from 4 different species work together to build what would become the headquarters of the Coalition of Free Species. The station was massive, designed to accommodate the different environmental needs of its member species. One section had crystal chambers for the Nethir, flooded with specific light frequencies. Another had water-filled corridors for the Corel. There were hive structures for the Vethrans and standard oxygen environments for humans and others. "It's beautiful," said Yoonji Kim, now promoted to commander. She stood beside Minho, watching the construction with satisfaction. 3 years ago, most of these species had never met. Now they're building a future together. "Because they had to," Minho replied. "The Valkyrie taught them that isolation is dangerous. Unity is survival." The door opened and Hunwoo Nam entered carrying a datapad. The intelligence officer looked tired but pleased. "We've located the last of the Valkyrie slave facilities. It's on a moon in the Kessa system. Reconnaissance suggests about 200 prisoners from various species. Send the data to Sergeant Daiho. His team has the most experience with these operations now." Minho turned from the window. "Any word on the rogue Valkyrie warlords?" "That's the good news. Seleth's information helped us track down 3 more. They're in custody now. She's proven herself very useful." Seleth had kept her promise. The young Valkyrie officer worked tirelessly to help locate and dismantle the remaining criminal operations of her people. Many Valkyrie didn't trust her, seeing her as a traitor. Many other species didn't trust her because she was Valkyrie. But she kept working, determined to earn redemption for her people. Dr. Yuna Choi entered next, followed by Chief Engineer Tai Young Han. They both looked excited about something. "We've finished the analysis," Yuna announced without preamble. "The combined medical and engineering report on the coalition members." She pulled up a holographic display showing the biological and technological profiles of each member species. Each species brings unique advantages. The Nethir can communicate through quantum entanglement, making them perfect for instant communication across vast distances. The Corel have biological regeneration abilities that we're studying for medical applications. The Vethrans have a hive mind that makes them incredibly efficient at coordination tasks. Taeyang added his part. And technologically, we're learning from each other. Corel propulsion systems are twice as efficient as ours. Nether energy matrices could revolutionize our power generation. Vethran material science has given us hull armor that's 30% stronger. And what does humanity bring to the table? Minho asked, though he knew the answer. Military doctrine, strategic thinking, and something none of the other species really had. The understanding that sometimes you have to fight. Yuna's expression was troubled. "I'm a doctor, Captain. Fighting goes against everything I was trained for. But the Velkari taught me that pacifism only works if everyone chooses it. When predators come hunting, you need to be ready," Minho nodded. This was a lesson every member of the coalition had learned the hard way. Peace was precious, but it required strength to maintain. Ambassador Soman Kwan called a coalition meeting that evening. Representatives from all 9 member species gathered in the station's central chamber. The room was a marvel of engineering, with different environmental zones for each species to remain comfortable. Somin stood at the center, her image projected so everyone could see her clearly. "We gather today to formalize what we have built together. The coalition of free species is no longer just an idea. It is a reality. We have freed thousands of slaves. We have brought criminals to justice. We have proven that different species can work together for the common good." Koresh, the Nethir elder, pulsed with approval. Through the translator, his words came out measured and wise. "The Velkari tried to destroy us by exploiting our compassion. Instead, they created something they never expected, unity among those they saw as prey." A Corel representative named Murrow added his thoughts through the water-filled communication sphere. "We were hunters in our own oceans once. We evolved past it, but the Velkari reminded us that predators still exist. The humans taught us that we can defend ourselves without becoming predators again. The question now is what comes next," said Ambassador Soman. "We have ended one threat, but intelligence reports suggest there are others. The Kreeth Empire is expanding aggressively in the outer sectors. The mercantile syndicate continues to traffic in slaves. Pirates raid civilian vessels with impunity in lawless regions." The chamber fell silent as everyone considered this. They had won against the Velkari, but the galaxy was vast and full of dangers. Minho raised his hand for permission to speak. As a military officer, he technically had no vote in political matters, but his opinion was valued. "We have a choice. We can defend ourselves and our territory, or we can do what humanity did after the Velkari attack, take the fight to those who prey on the innocent." "You're suggesting proactive operations?" asked a Vethran delegate named Crix, her antennae twitching with concern. "That sounds like conquest, not conquest. Protection." Minho pulled up a star map showing the locations of recent attacks by various hostile forces. Every one of these points represents innocent people under threat. Colonists, traders, explorers. They're where we were 6 months ago, vulnerable and alone. We have the power to help them. The question is whether we have the will. The debate went on for hours. Some species were hesitant to take such an aggressive stance. Others, particularly those who had been enslaved by the Velkari, wanted immediate action. Finally, Ambassador Soman called for a vote. The result was unanimous. The coalition would not just defend its own borders, it would actively oppose slavery, piracy, and conquest throughout the sector. It was an ambitious goal, perhaps an impossible one, but they would try. 3 days later, the coalition launched its first official operation. A mercantile syndicate slave ship had been tracked to a remote system. The ship carried over 500 captives from a dozen different species, destined for sale in the outer markets. Commander Yunji led the mission personally, commanding a task force of 3 coalition ships. When they intercepted the slave ship, The syndicate captain immediately tried to bribe them. "You don't understand," the captain said, his reptilian features twisted in confusion. "These are legal property under syndicate law. You have no jurisdiction here." Yunji's response was cold and final. "We don't recognize slavery under any law. You have 1 minute to release your captives and surrender. After that, we will take them by force." The syndicate captain made the mistake of opening fire. His ship was destroyed within seconds, but not before Yunji's team teleported the captives to safety. Not one life was lost except those who chose to fight. Similar operations followed across the sector. The coalition became known as a force that protected the vulnerable and punished the wicked. Word spread quickly. Some species requested membership. Others changed their policies to avoid coalition attention. A few declared themselves enemies. But perhaps the most important moment came when a young child from a rescued colony asked Sergeant Deho a simple question. "Why do you help us? What do you get from it?" Deho knelt down to the child's level, thinking about how to answer. Finally, he said, "Because someone has to, because we can, and because everyone deserves to be safe." It was the philosophy that drove the entire coalition. Simple, direct, and absolute. Back on Earth, the response to these events was mixed. Some people celebrated humanity's new role as galactic protectors. Others worried about the cost and risk. Admiral Hana Song addressed these concerns in a speech that was broadcast across human space. "We did not ask for this responsibility," she said. "It was thrust upon us when the Valkyrie attacked. But now that we have it, we cannot turn away. We have seen what happens when good people do nothing. We have seen slavery, exploitation, and genocide. And we have the power to stop it. Not everywhere, not all at once, but where we can, when we can. That is what it means to be human. That is what it means to have strength and choose to use it for good." The speech became famous, quoted and referenced across the coalition. Other species began to understand what made humanity unique. It wasn't their technology or their military skills. It was their belief that power came with responsibility. Dr. Yuna reflected on this one evening, while treating injured coalition soldiers in the medical bay. She had struggled with the violence at first, with the necessity of turning her skills towards supporting warriors rather than healing civilians. But she had come to understand something important. Peace is not the absence of conflict, she told a young nurse. Peace is what we build after the conflict ends. Every soldier we heal goes back out and protects more innocent lives. Every battle we win means fewer victims in the galaxy. We're not abandoning our principles. We're applying them in a reality that isn't as simple as we wished. As the station neared completion, Ambassador Soman prepared for the formal inauguration ceremony. Leaders from 30 different species had been invited, including some who were not yet coalition members. 1 year after the Valkyrie ambush, the coalition of free species had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as 9 species seeking justice had become an alliance of 23 worlds. The station that Minho had watched being built was now a thriving hub of galactic diplomacy and cooperation. Admiral Minho Park, promoted after his handling of the Valkyrie crisis, stood in his new office overlooking the main docking bay. Ships from dozens of species came and went constantly, bringing delegates, supplies, and news from across the sector. It was a far cry from the quiet patrol routes he had been flying just a year ago. "Admiral, we have a situation," Commander Yoonji Kim announced as she entered without knocking. She never knocked anymore. They had been through too much together for formalities. "What kind of situation?" "The Kreeth Empire has invaded the Delthan system. 3 colony worlds, total population about 8 million. The Delthan have no military to speak of. They're researchers and artists. The Kreeth are enslaving them." Minho's jaw tightened. The Kreeth were a hive-minded species that saw other sentient beings as resources to be exploited. They had been a growing threat for months, but this was their most aggressive move yet. "How long do we have?" "The Kreeth will have complete control in 72 hours if no one intervenes. Then we intervene. Assemble a task force. I want our best ships and crews ready to move in 12 hours. "Already done, sir. I anticipated your response." Minho smiled slightly. "Of course you did." The coalition task force that assembled was impressive. 20 warships from 7 different species, each contributing their unique strengths. The Nethir provided instant communication between all vessels through their quantum entanglement abilities. The Coral brought their superior propulsion systems. The Vetherans contributed their coordination skills. And humanity provided the strategic planning and tactical expertise. But this mission would be different from previous operations. They weren't rescuing a single ship or hitting a slave facility. They were going to war with an empire. In the briefing room, Minho addressed the assembled ship captains. Among them were familiar faces. Commander Unji would lead the tactical wing. Chief Engineer Taeyang would coordinate support vessels. Dr. Yuna had volunteered to bring her medical ship, knowing casualties were likely. And there was a new face. Selith, the young Velkari officer who had been working with the coalition for months, stood among the captains. She now commanded a small frigate crewed by reformed Velkari who wanted to prove their worth. The Kree think they can take whatever they want because no one has been strong enough to stop them, Minho began. Today we show them they're wrong. But this is not about conquest or revenge. We're going in to free the Delthan people and make it clear that the coalition will not tolerate slavery or aggression. Karesh, the Nethir elder who now served as the coalition's tactical advisor, pulsed with light. The Kree have 40 ships defending the Delthan system. We are outnumbered 2-1. We've faced worse odds, Sergeant Deho Shin commented. He would be leading the ground forces. And the Kree have never fought a coordinated multi-species force. The task force jumped to hyperspace, arriving at the Delthan system 16 hours later. The Kree fleet was waiting, arrayed in orbit around the 3 colony worlds. As Minho had predicted, they were confident in their numerical advantage. The Kree Hive commander broadcast a message. Unlike individual beings, the Kree spoke with one voice, thousands of individuals sharing a single consciousness. Coalition vessels, you have entered Kree territory. Withdraw or be destroyed. These are not your worlds, Minho replied. The Delthan people have asked for our protection. We're here to provide it. The weak exist to serve the strong. This is natural law. Then let us show you how natural law works when the weak unite. The battle began with a massive coordinated assault. But instead of attacking directly, the coalition fleet used tactics the Kree had never encountered. Ships from different species moved in perfect synchronization, each playing to their strengths. Pilot Minji Kang, now a squadron leader, flew with a mixed group of human, Vethran, and Nethir pilots. The combination was devastating. Human creativity, Vethran coordination, and Nethir instantaneous communication created flying patterns that seemed almost impossible. Taeyang's engineering vessels deployed a new weapon that the coalition had been developing. Gravity mines that created localized field distortions. Kree ships, which relied on swarm tactics, found themselves pulled off course and colliding with each other. Yunji commanded the tactical division with precision. She had studied Kree fighting patterns for months and knew their weakness. The hive mind was efficient but not creative. They followed patterns, so she kept changing the patterns, forcing them to adapt, and in those moments of adaptation they were vulnerable. The Kree lost 8 ships in the first hour. They had never experienced such coordinated resistance. The hive mind struggled to understand how different species could work together so effectively. Meanwhile, Deho led assault teams to the surface of the colony worlds. They found thousands of Delthan people imprisoned in holding facilities, waiting to be shipped off-world as slave labor. The Kree guards fought fiercely, but the coalition soldiers fought with purpose. Remember, minimum casualties on both sides, Deho reminded his teams. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to end slavery. It was a difficult balance. The Kree couldn't be reasoned with. Their hive mind saw only victory or defeat. But the coalition refused to become the monsters they were fighting. They disabled rather than destroyed when possible. They took prisoners rather than executing defeated enemies. Dr. Yuna's medical teams worked around the clock, treating both coalition wounded and captured Kree. Some species questioned why they would heal their enemies, but Yuna was firm. We show strength in battle, she said. We show character in mercy. The space battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the Kree had lost 23 ships. The remainder retreated to their core territories. The coalition had lost 2 ships and suffered casualties, but they had won decisively. On the surface, the Delthan people were free. Many of them had never seen warfare before. Their species had evolved beyond conflict generations ago. They were terrified by what they had witnessed. A Delthan elder named Torin approached Minho after the liberation. The alien looked like a tall, thin humanoid with crystalline features similar to the Nethir, but different in key ways. You saved us, Torin said simply. But at what cost? So much violence, so much death. The cost was necessary. Minho replied gently. We wish it wasn't, but the Kreeth wouldn't have stopped. They would have enslaved your entire population. I understand logically, but emotionally it is difficult. Torin paused. Will you teach us to defend ourselves? We do not want to be helpless again. We'll teach you. But more than that, you can join the coalition. Stand with us. Together, we're strong enough to discourage attacks like this. The Delthan agreed, becoming the 24th member species of the coalition. Their story spread quickly across the galaxy. The coalition had gone to war with an empire and won. More importantly, they had done it while maintaining their principles. Not everyone was happy about this. 3 species declared themselves opposed to coalition expansion. They accused humanity and its allies of imperialism, of forcing their values on others. Ambassador Soman addressed these concerns in a speech at the coalition station. Representatives from over 50 species attended, including some who were suspicious of the coalition's growing power. We do not seek to control others, Soman stated clearly. Every member of the coalition joined voluntarily. Every rescue operation we conduct is in response to specific requests for help. We have one simple principle. Sentient beings have the right to live free from slavery, oppression, and genocide. If that makes us imperialists, then yes, we are guilty. The speech was met with mixed reactions, but something important happened afterward. 4 more species requested coalition membership. They had been watching, waiting to see if this new alliance was genuine or just another power play. The Kreeth battle proved that the coalition would actually fight for its principles. Meanwhile, the Kreeth Empire sent a formal communication. The hive mind had learned something from its defeat. We acknowledge coalition strength. We propose non-aggression pact. Kreeth will not attack coalition members. Coalition will not interfere in Kreeth territory. It was the first time in recorded history that the Kreeth had negotiated, rather than simply attacked. Minho discussed the proposal with the Coalition Council. They're just afraid, argued one delegate. They'll rebuild and attack again. Probably, Minho agreed. But in the meantime, they'll leave peaceful species alone. And maybe over time, they'll learn that cooperation is more profitable than conquest. It's worth trying. The council agreed to the non-aggression pact, but with strict terms. The Kreeth would free all current slaves and dismantle their slaving operations. They would pay reparations to victim species, and they would allow coalition inspectors to verify compliance. To everyone's surprise, the Kreeth agreed. The hive mind had calculated that continued war would cost more than compliance. 6 months later, the coalition celebrated its most significant achievement yet.